give you the 1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, go.
You should be able to share your screen. Rock and roll.
We're cooking with grease. Welcome, everyone. I appreciate your presence on today. We are going to do a deep dive into the cloud-based software Lumio, which is a part of Smart Technologies. I absolutely adore it and love it because it truly dives into my die on the sword, which is equity. And that's why I've titled it Equity in Action, leveraging Lumio to heighten equitable learning experiences for our students. So I come from the Prince William County Schools Division. Just a little bit about my background. 11 years as a classroom teacher at the secondary level, CTE, from Stafford County, Prince William County, and DC public schools, but also 18 years overall in education so far. Now I'm at the division level as a training and professional development specialist, and just seeing the need of exercising equity for our students, meeting each of our students where they are at the right time for their needs. That is so meaningful and impactful to me. And so every single time I come across any type of technology, and technology can be lots of different tools that can meet our students in those type of ways, I'm on board with it. So that's what we're gonna get into today. What we are going to unpack is discovering those pathways of engagement, representation, that self-efficacy, and how to make learning relevant to our students. How we're gonna do that with Lumio. If you all have Lumio within your school divisions, great. If you don't, this is an opportunity to get in, ask those questions. A lot of us have those smart boards in our school. We're using Smart Notebook, but you may not be using Lumio. So this is also an opportunity to ask those questions. I'm also going to really dive into some of those toolkits that Lumio provides as far as tangible strategies on how to provide equity and equitable learning for our students. Then we're going to embrace that as a learning community in this room and online, and how it provides that student autonomy, and it supports all of our students in achieving their own goals. So now, and I think you all can hear where I'm going is personalized learning. Personalized learning, and that therein is equity. I love this slide. And also I love these templates. This is just a little nice template. Everything that you are seeing as far as the template backgrounds, it's generated right out of Lumio. But the slide says equality is giving everyone a shoe, and equity is giving everyone a shoe that fits. I sometimes get red in the face when I hear others say, oh, but we are giving access. We are equitable in our approach. We do meet the needs of our students, but it's almost they're thinking of equality and not equity. Now, how does this quote transpose to the classroom? And I'll stop right there, and just providing the space of reflection, Do we all think that this is happening currently in our schools? I see head nods. Why? Just popcorn. Why do we think this is not happening?
Well, I'm a classroom teacher and I'll tell you that my colleagues will tell you I'm doing everything the same for everyone. And so therefore that's equity. I'm like, that's literally the opposite. I was like, that's equal, not equity.
Yes.
Right. So I make the same mean face for everyone. I give everyone the same instruction. I'm like, that's what my 16-year-old knows better.
Yes. Anyone else? Yes.
Trying to, at least our district decided to do hybrid this year rather than virtual classrooms and in-person classrooms, and trying to somehow do equity when you're doing both, and then also having Ls and speds and 504s and then gifted and all of that.
You all, in the slide that's coming up, both of you just hit on something. It is the opposite of equity, because if you are trying to give everyone a shoe that fits, my shoe size is completely different probably than your shoe size and your shoe size and your shoe size. So that is not equity. When we talk about differentiating instruction, when we talk about meeting our students where they are, how are we going to do that when honestly, you have to start addressing some of your teachers' needs first. If you truly want to unpack a true student-centered experience, how can you do that when you never address the needs of your teacher? So it's a lot to it, and it is a big job. But if we start to address things from a whole school approach, that also is addressing equity. And I see a lot, and this is a discussion that we are also having in our school division in a lot of different departments, a lot of different offices, is that, yes, we want to drive rigorous instruction. Yes, we want to drive student-centered learning, but often our staff is left out of this model. And they're the ones who have to drive rigorous instruction. They're the ones who have to drive all of this great student, foster all of this culturally relevant and engaging practices. So we're gonna get into it, the meat of the matter, and we're gonna get into how Lumio can assist us and support us. Lumio's not gonna do all the work because the technology is a tool to support all of the amazing subject matter experts, which are the teachers and educators. All right. Equitable learning. What is it? Every student has access to the educational resources and rigor across race, across gender, ethnicity, language, disability, sexual orientation, family background, and or family income. Just let that sit. All right, so Lumio, if it is nothing else, it is extremely interactive. So for everyone in the virtual space, they have already been given the Lumio class ID, how to join, but for all of us here in our community, it is www.hellosmart.com. And then once you log on to www.hellosmart.com, you can join as a guest. And my class ID is 59873. I'll repeat that again. 59873. So it's www.hellosmart.com. And my class ID is 59873. So let me see if I can go to the chat and pull that up.
Very similar to your college.
It does look a lot like
It has a lot of similarities. So for those in the chat community, there's dialogue about the similarities to Nearpod. I've gone through some things in Nearpod and I felt the same thing. And I shared that with the SMART team.
Would you recommend like a district having both, or do you, I'm sure you prefer Lumio to Nearpod.
Our district has both.
You have both?
Mhm.
Okay.
Our district has both. And the only feedback that I've been getting from teachers who use SMART and Lumio is the elementary school teachers like Lumio a lot. Some of our secondary teachers, especially those with the math focus, have started really leaning into Lumio because they have a Desmos feature now.
I was about to ask, 'cause I'm a math teacher and I'm curious if I see a finger up there, I see a pencil up there, like how responsive it is to writing.
Yes. Yeah.
We have a Nearpod license for our district, not Lumio, but I can see benefits of both.
Yes. And if you don't want to log into the class, it's perfectly fine. I'll still be sharing my screen so you can walk through, or you can answer in the chat or just answer aloud in our live session community. Yeah.
Can you do me a favor and just give me the class code one?
Sure, it's 59873.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
What do you say is the big difference between Lumio and Nearpod?
I'm not that familiar with Nearpod, so I can't speak to it that well. I would say the biggest difference for me is that in Nearpod, Lumio has instructional audio where the teacher can do talk text. In Nearpod, the students can also do it. So I appreciate that about Nearpod.
My district has both, and they've been using both for a while. And they, it seems like the elementary teachers have put their reading groups in Lumio and small group activities, and then they use Nearpod for independent work. That's basically how it's kind of panned out.
That's good feedback. Thank you. All right, so we're getting started with our first response activity, and the question to the team is, for equity, does every learner have access to the same education resources and rigor regardless of socioeconomic status or geographic conditions? Is that happening in your division or not? Yes, no, or C, are you unsure? And so you have a little bit of time. Let's give about 30 more seconds for everybody to ponder and then answer. What I appreciate about Lumio is that it provides the teacher how his or her class is doing in real time. And you'll see that right here. And then we'll be able to show live results by the time this circle is closed. Then say you have, this is just for example, that we're having some access issues at our school. This happens in our school division. The internet is down today. That happens. You can just pivot, and then I would have to maybe put this up on my smart board or just write it out on my whiteboard, ask this question, and then we come back and do it a different way. I can put this as a warm-up or exit ticket or something of that nature.
I have a question. Can you see who hasn't responded yet?
Like the specific people.
Yeah.
That I can do that in Lumio if I were to set this up as an independent, what's it called? An independent handout. I can do that. But also if we went into game-based learning, and we'll get into that, I'm able to see who has submitted what if I chose to show it. Sometimes you can set it up as anonymous, or you can set it up as, you can see names.
I mean, you could presumably circle the room too and say, who's done it yet?
And sometimes you don't want to see who's doing what. It's up to.
Yeah, it has different, sometimes you need the feedback, sometimes you want it to be anonymous.
Sometimes you just need to know Jimmy still hasn't done it.
That's it. So for this response activity, I'm gonna go ahead and end it, but I wanted everybody to see the capability of Lumio and to just pulse the room. This is just us diving into the material to see how we felt as a community. And overall, it's looking like as a community, no. We don't feel that every learner has access to the same education resources or the same rigor. Now that could entail a lot of different things. Maybe we don't think that us collectively as teachers have received the proper training. And that's no fault of our own. Maybe that could be we all don't have access to the training and professional development and learning programs, or we all don't have access to the same resources to provide those supports to our students, or the funding is not there. It could be a bevy of things, but we did have some in our community that said that they did feel that every learner does have access to the same education and resources and rigor. And then some were unsure. So I'll go ahead and end this activity. There you go. And it was, I didn't get your name.
Oh, I'm Miss B. I'm Corinne. Corinne
Corinne.
is my actual name.
So Corinne, let's go ahead and dive in here. You asked about progress. And it actually gives you a red alert. So if I were to set this up as anonymous and I hadn't asked for any student names to be shown, then I wouldn't have known anything that was happening. But since I did, and honestly, I shouldn't have, my apologies for our training community, it did show me who was still in progress. And another thing that I've done with Lumio, and I did this in a previous training session, if you set the names up or if you have your students log in exactly how they are logged in the grade book, and for our school division, we actually have them set up in Clever. So if they just click on their Clever, you can export all of this out into your grade book. So that's something to note. Nice. Mm-hmm. Okay. So when we get into functional strategies that promote immersive, equitable learning experiences, now that we have had a chance to really go into the difference between equality, the difference between equity, and what we define that as in education, I want to dive into what Lumio affords us. So they have an entire game-based learning component. They have an entire English language learners component. And before I get into all of these, I wanted to show you all. There it is. Okay. So they have a lot of different toolkits, and we can go through all of them. But here is the game-based activities toolkit, and this is right here on Lumio. They have an entire Smart Exchange, but this is where the game-based activities, similar, fill in the blank is similar to closed notes, where if you want your students to, I lost my train of thought. Game-based learning, that drives fun, that deepens the learning process for them, it stems competition, which that's often fun. You all know that as educators. It also reaches students where they are. And what I mean by that is all of us learn differently. So when we talk about equity and we talk about meeting our students where they are, finding something that works for each student in our class is hard in that 90-minute session that we have, in that 60-minute session that we have. This is how we can get there. So it's a game-based learning component. All of this can be found on Lumio, but the thing that is so amazing about this, Lumio game-based activities are ready-made. And so you can click on one of those let me go to mine. Trying to get this out of the way. Hide controls. There we go. I'm gonna go to my, because I want you all to actually see this, how fast it is. And then I'll go back to our presentation. It's this add activities section here. And this, we'll go here. You go to the add activities. They actually have it broken down to activating prior knowledge for our students, questioning and reflectioning, manipulatives are, you can use it more for just math, graphic organizers, but say we wanted to activate prior knowledge. They have KWL charts, what do you want to know, response activities. If you have an entrance ticket, and we wanted to have our students explain what they wanted to know about that. Some students don't want to type all the time. Maybe they just want to say in a nutshell what they knew about, I don't know. The sun. And so all they have to do is just pull over a sun. And up here is where you as the educator, the sun in. And now you created that so fast. I mean, that one is like super uber simple, but you get the drift of what I'm saying. You created that so fast. But even more ready-made is that if you wanted to do secondary, they even have post-secondary. But since I was a CTE teacher, I would just look up anything on your internet. Let me say, I want to do anything, all subjects. And it should pop up. Of course, this happens when you are presenting. Bless you. Usually does not. I don't know why the fine button is not there. Yeah, Joy. Oh.
On your Google Slides
Mhm.
tab, you have the list of all of those different like game types.
Let me
Is
go back
there-
to that.
Yeah, that. If I just want to see the game show format and put my stuff in there, how would I find that?
That is on this one. Let me go back to it. Oh, because I was reloading. Let me go back to home. So there's a game-based learning right here in templates, game-based
There it
activities.
is. Okay, I see it.
And so you want to see the game show. And that is where you can create your own content. You can either set it up by multiple choice, true, false, and then you can add pictures, images, put in your questions, and then you would click next, and it would create whatever content you had. And then it would create an actual game for your students.
Can you import things like if you already have stuff in Quizlet and stuff and import it and it just?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That is one of the coolest features that I appreciate about Lumio is the import here.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Mhm. Ooh. All right.
What kind of resources can you input? Like, is it just Quizlet or like what?
No, I can tell you from what I have done, I import almost all of my previous PowerPoints. I don't use Smart Notebook that much, but anything that you have created in Notebook, things that I have created in Discovery Ed, any type of studio boards, anything like that, I have uploaded into Lumio. Any Padlets that I've done, the links I can put in there.
Do you mind showing what's in the Desmos? I'm just curious if it's activities or if it's the calculator. It's a calculator. Okay, that's good to know.
I'm trying to think what else that I have personally uploaded. Definitely YouTube, and these are ad-free YouTubes, which is really cool.
Nice.
Yeah. When I found that out, I was like, oh, yes.
Do you happen to know, does it still keep it in the YouTube platform or does it like put it
For
in
real, right?
Smart? Because YouTube's blocked for students for us, but it's on for teachers. So I don't, you know what I'm saying? Does it like pull it into Smart or does it keep it on YouTube and just like redirect? Do you happen to know?
No, when I have pulled in, I went out to YouTube, added it into my presentation. When it ran, there were no ads.
Okay.
Mhm.
The Desmos feature, it's, so I know it's a calculator. Can you import the activities as well, or is that not a feature?
That I can't speak to, but can you email me after this? My information is on here and I can find out from the Smart team about that because I don't know that.
Can you embed links?
Yes, and that's in my presentation.
That would be a way to get a Desmos activity.
Yeah, because
You can embed links.
Okay.
Great questions. I love it. Is there anything in the chat? Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, okay.
No cap, no questions yet.
Okay. All right. So,
Do you know if this embeds in Canvas? Like if you do something on Lumio and it's like student based, you can embed it in Canvas?
there's no LTI integration. No, I thought you meant we leverage, we have a Canvas course. And then what I have to do, because we created one for our division, what I have to do is take all of my Lumio presentations and then I just put it in, drop it into like assignment or discussion and then do it that way. Yeah. Now that's like a wish list item for me. I keep asking the Smart team and they said they're working on a Canvas LTI integration.
I'm sure it'll come in another year or two with how big Canvas has gotten.
Yeah.
You can just use the student share link
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Lumio.
And that's
put it
what
in.
we've been doing,
There's content.
student or the teacher one and just share it out. Okay. So going back to some of the amazing strategies that promote equitable learning, there's also the instructional audio. It provides, I'm gonna go here, the activate prior knowledge. You can build on vocabulary. There's so many collaboration tools that Lumio has, the graphic organizer that was in there when we clicked on that green button. These are all of those games under the game-based learning tool that you can go to in Lumio that really provide fun for our students. The next slide that we're gonna go to will actually be a game. I believe it is. Yep. We're gonna do in real time a monster quiz. So you all can see and experience what your students will experience if you all choose to have them participate. I'm going to start, already divided in teams. People are already logged in. Yeah. Let's divide everybody into 4 teams. And so while the teams are getting ready, you'll see, I want to draw everybody's attention down here to assign teams by dragging student names. You can then start the quiz after you finish. Lumio gives you that opportunity to just auto-assign teams. But if you notice that there's someone that you would really like for, if there's someone that you would, a student that you would like one of your students to work with, that's where you can do your rigmarole and move them around here. So let's go ahead and start our quiz.
Can you move them around before? You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes when you're having 20 kids sitting there staring at you, that's not the time you want to be moving kids around. Can you do any?
I know
Okay.
that you can't,
Okay.
yeah, you can't do that. And also, one thing that I have experienced in real time is if a student or a learner comes into the classroom after the quiz is
Yeah,
started.
I joined 30 seconds too late.
Yeah, so then what I have done when that's happened is just kind of walk them through, well, you know, what you would do in real time if a person walked in, once you have already started some type of instruction, say, well, this is what we're doing, and just try to engage them, let them know what's happening, what's going on, as the others are participating, and also just say, you know, help me engage the students, help me engage the class. I don't say blah, 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 whoop-de-whoop. Just make sure they still feel a part of the learning process. And then our quiz should be over. Another thing I wanted to add to the muster quiz, which is really cool, you can adjust the time. So it's you can give your students 15 seconds, you can give them 30 seconds, but you have to set that before the muster quiz starts too, so. If you all felt that that was just too short of a time to answer the questions. One thing that's really fun is that we all were able to see, while I was just talking on just now, we all were able to see what team was coming in first, second, or third as the muster quiz had started, which that was truly fun. Another thing is you can make this anonymous, which honestly, I kind of recommend that you do. I didn't do it, but I recommend that when we're working with our K-12 learners that you make the teams anonymous so people don't know who's answering what question in the event that somebody gets their question incorrect. So that's something just to note. But our heat scorchers, they came in first. Whoop, whoop. You know, that fun, friendly competition, that's always great.
I have a question.
Yes.
So obviously you wrote the questions, right, that went into the game. And I'm also an EL teacher. I teach both math and EL. It doesn't matter. Could you add images to these questions as well?
You can, but you have to do one or the other. And that's the same
so
with some
you
of our shout it out.
could make an image out of your words and your picture and then use it as an image.
Yes,
All right.
but you can't do text and image.
And
And
you can
that
find a creative way to do it.
you can.
Okay.
But that's one thing that I have been seeking some information on, because I found that in one of the other games, it's called Shout It Out, or one of the openers. You have to do either text or image. And it would be amazing if we could do both, because that speaks further to that differentiation, because it just does.
Yeah, sometimes they need that visual reinforcement. I mean, it's just a different way to.
Or just like I teach world geo, so I need to be able to put a picture of a map and highlight a country and ask them, what's that country or what's that river?
Now I do know that if you have your smart board, you can kind of lean into how they can use their pen, the pen ink feature, and kind of work that in while the game is going somehow. But that's kind of using two tools at once. That's the only way I can think that you would be able to do it. Do you have your smart board in your classroom?
We don't have a lot, but. No, but I mean, I can do that. I can do the pictures myself. It would just be nice if we could put the picture and I can give them the instructions of what they're supposed to do, like identify the country highlighted. Because some of them are pretty intuitive, so.
Really engaged with
Mhm.
the task.
I like the scoreboard feature as well. Again, making sure that the names stay anonymous, but then you can have the class review at the end, just that additional reinforcement, follow-up. This also allows me as a teacher to say, okay, my class is rolling with this, rocking, we can move forward. Or if there's further opportunity to reinforce instruction somewhere, we can go back and revisit. You can also dive into team scoreboard and then just scroll down some more to look at things. So it's a fun tool. I really appreciate Monster Quiz. There's some opportunity there, but I lean into every aspect, but I also lean into how we can meet our learners where they are. Game-based learning is one of those ways. I truly do feel that, because when we're talking about making learning relevant to our students, that's relevant. That's what they're doing right now on their own time. Going back to more ways to be immersive, more ways to promote equity in our learning experiences, we have socio-emotional learning, active learning strategies. So there's another one called our graffiti board that Lumio does, and then they are big on building connections that matter. I often hear that you have to immediately dive into instruction. You know, we have so much data that we have to submit. We have so much testing that has to be done. But if you don't foster that community and that sense of belonging for your students, then to me, and this may be just my opinion, it's all gonna fall apart after. And I appreciated how in Lumio, they give you strategies, tangible strategies, and quick strategies on how to foster that socio-emotional learning piece for your students and ways to do it. And then they dive into those active learning strategies. So I wanted to go first to the SEL piece of it. And they actually have emotional literacy toolkits. And I'll hit on the self-awareness. It's a feelings check-in, rank your values, the self-portrait collage. Let me scroll back out. Right, I don't know what's happening on my screen right now. I don't know.
That's what happens to me, like all the time.
Every time. I don't, it's just,
Kids, then they go, Windows.
I really don't. Okay, well, let's just click out. All right. Then they have just some, okay. I'm so sorry. There we go. Choose kindness, privilege mind maps. The 3-2-1, that is interchangeable. A lot of times that can be used as just like a check-in for a bevy of things, but also a check-in for mindfulness, empathy building practices. How are we doing? How am I doing as your teacher? It's not always, how are you doing, student? But how am I doing as your teacher? Let me know. Feedback is cyclical.
So when you're creating a Lumio presentation, so you can incorporate like the Desmos here, but then a social awareness activity here, and then a monster game, and then just put it all into one giant thing, so you can
Yes.
access. So it's not just like you have to do the social awareness Lumio, like you can take the privilege mind map and add it into your lesson.
Yes. Yep. So let me, and I hate to keep staring, well, I don't hate to keep staring away. I want you all to see the full meat and potatoes of how Lumio can flow. So let me go out to my actual Lumio, some of my other presentations. This is one that I have done for another organization. But you see how it's just, I did a mindfulness practice, but I did a brainwave, and that was a collaborative workspace activity where others started adding in. But then I also did a shout it out, which was an SEL activity because it added in from everyone in the room how they were feeling at that time. And then I went back into instruction for another activity. It's just so amazing it's so amazing all of the capabilities of Lumio. So it doesn't limit us in our approach. Okay, oh, wrong one.
Does it also have the ability to, I know with Nearpod, you can share folders and presentations with fellow
Yes.
teachers. It has that feature as well?
Right here, if you go up to the top and then go down to the share button, you can share out your own teacher copy. And this way, any teacher in your entire school division or anywhere, it doesn't have to be in your school division, it could be, I could share this copy with you. And you can take it, make it your own, make your own edits to my presentation, and then start doing your own work. Any of those interactive activities, you can completely take away everything that I have, but still use the meat of it, and then start doing it your way. You can either, even on that Munster quiz that we just did, you can go back and make and change the times. How I didn't make my names anonymous, then you can go back and make yours anonymous. Then also what I appreciate about this, how we have some school divisions who are still completely virtual, or some are hybrid, or some are in person. If you want to leverage your LMS, you can add this into your Canvas LMS if you have that, drop that link in here, and then that's where all of your students can access this on their own time, in their own space. And that's that's a big equity issue, because that spoke to, I can't remember, one of the presenters say it, you are giving everyone hotspots, but then all students are having to use the same hotspot at the same time. That is unrealistic. But if you can give every student this link right now, what this person can use this link at 7 o'clock at night, and then they don't have to worry about being in a crowded, loud space. They can go into, I don't know, a quiet space in their home or wherever, and log on to this asynchronous link and do their work, their purposeful work.
And we can go back in and check their work.
Yes, yes. And how you can go back in and check their work is through, if they have a response activity, you can see if they've done it. Or there is a place where you can go, let me not go here because I'm on a response activity. Let's say I wanted to make this an individual handout, this quote right here. Now I've made this quote an individual handout. And every single person in this class is going to work on this activity. So when I click on their name, if I am for some reason working at midnight as a teacher, which unfortunately we all have at some point in our career, I will be able to see Johnny such and such's work. There's a lot of cool capabilities.
Is there one place to find, like, your English language? Like, how do I find some of these different templates and the emotional literacy toolkit?
That goes back to,
The Gamebased is all together, but like those things are
Let me go back
in one
to
spot.
here. You have the Smart Exchange. And we have, I'm trying to get back to my exact Lumio. You have suite.smarttech.com. So when you are at suite.smarttech.com, mine just came with that pride, it's going to be an Explore Resources tab right next to your Add Activities. So when you click that,
Yeah, they're your collections.
yep.
Okay.
In the collections. You're welcome. And then Lumio has just one more section that I really love that provides those ready-made templates. And that is our Smart Exchange. Go. And that's the Smart Exchange. I'm going to go back and put this Smart Exchange in the scheduler, excuse me. Because I know I didn't put that one in there. For everyone in our session to have access to. This one is amazing because not only does this one have Lumio resources, but you see it has Smart Notebook lesson resources. And that one is where we can search by grade and by subject. And I appreciate that because it doesn't limit it to North American resources, it's global. And so that's where we can also research by standards, and then gets into classroom management. Subjects, it dives down, location, and assessment types. So that one's another good one. And that is the exchange.smarttech.prod.com, or you can do exchange.smarttech.com. I'm gonna keep my eye on time. I'm wrapping up. Okay. So. Usually you don't have to keep hitting the reload got it section with Lumio. But in the essence of time, I know we're getting close. I'm gonna go ahead and scroll through a few. This is one I wanted to just touch on, is that 3-2-1. And that can be a SEL check-in, or that can just be a check for understanding for our students. I'll scroll through that one. For formative assessments. So when we are also talking about equitable learning, formative assessments don't have to just be write down what you learned, let me know. It can be, you can do formative assessments in so many different ways via Lumio. It can be through a shout it out. It can be through a game-based assessment. It can be through a 1-minute paper. I want to click on that just really quickly before we end our time and just leave some time just for last minute questions. Student feedback, student reflection. Learning artifacts. This is where if your student does not want to do text at all, they can doodle. And that's where we can have just a blank space page, make it an interactive handout. They can take time to reflect on everything that happened in class that day, and then just write out or doodle out their thoughts. A lot of times that's how we all process, or some people process, and then they can doodle out their thoughts, a think, pair, square, reliant on the Frayer model, or just that 1-minute paper. Now with the 1-minute paper, that is amazing, especially for all of the learning artifacts. Now those have the capability to do text and image. Almost all of the formative assessments do. You can do text and image. It's just with some of the game-based learning ones, you have to do either or. So Lumio doesn't limit itself there. I will wrap us up with just this last quote. Equity can never become a reality in education if it's viewed as charity instead of a professional obligation. And that's just something that I found as powerful to drive the work that I do within my school division and just the hard work that I do overall. And the conversations I hold in the space that I walk in, and just the mindfulness practices and the conversations that I carry. There is my contact information. I know there were some follow-ups that I wanted to follow up with the SMART team on. Is there any, just closing dialogue, is there any thoughts that our community wanted to leave with each other? Some things that are happening in your division or in the practices that you are currently doing that you think would be valuable for our team here that haven't already been shared?
I know a tip we learned, if you're using Smart Notebook, which I know some people aren't, but it makes more sense and it's easier to create your Smart Notebook and then transfer it into Lumio, because once it's in Lumio, it's harder to edit. If you take a Smart Notebook, a lot of teachers, because Lumio came way after Smart Notebook, so a lot of teachers want to take their Smart Notebooks and put them into Lumio and it transfers seamlessly, but once it's in there, you can't edit it as easily. So if you want to change anything, change it first in Smart Notebook. And especially if you go to Smart, what is that? The big site where you can get Smart Notebook stuff for free.
Smart Exchange.
Smart Exchange, yeah.
Mhm.
And if you want to pull something off there, pull the Smart Notebook file, not the Lumio file, and edit it the way you want it, then transfer it into Lumio and it's good to go.
Mhm. Yeah. I found that too when I was importing some of my PowerPoint files. And that's why I've leaned into using some of the Lumio templates
Right.
a lot more. Like this is a full Lumio template that I use today for this presentation.
And you can, we found that you can transfer in slide decks too from Google, but they only transfer pictures. So, yeah, so, if you want to do that, you might want to just remake it another, or make it in Lumio or remake it in Smart Notebook if you have that access.
It has worked. I've used some Canva and it looks nice when I import it. And so,
Oh, yeah, okay.
It looks nice. Good job. Thank you. Any other takeaways? We'll go ahead and end the questions.
Is there so I see that there's like a draw tool. Is there also like a highlighter, like if you're annotating documents?
You can do that with your, yes.
Oh, that one's the highlighter. Okay, cool.
I was gonna say you can do that with your smartboard, but I need to stop saying that in presentations, just assuming that everyone has smartboard. That's an equity also.
If you don't have a smartboard, I recommend you sticking with your pod, just because the smartboard makes this a lot nicer, because we have a few teachers that don't have a smartboard at our middle school and high school, and using Lumio, it's not as worth it to them as the things you can do with your pod.
All right, well, thank you all for your presence. I appreciate you all, and thank you all for the collaborative dialogue and all the takeaways.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of the Vista community sessions. And thank you to everyone in the virtual land.